during Abdu'l-Baha's tour of England, one of the cities that he visited was Wandsworth. And while he was there, he wanted to go and visit the prisoners at Wandsworth Prison. And in the entrance of the prison, there was a visitor's book, which I suppose was there for families and friends of the inmates to sign and leave a message when they visited. And so Abdu'l-Baha signed this visitor's book, and he left a brief note in it, just a single line that said, "The greatest prison is the prison of self." And this must have been an intriguing statement coming from a man who had just spent the last 40 years of his life in one of the most notorious prison colonies in the world. So what did that mean? The greatest prison is the prison of self. What is that? It's a phrase that seems to have a kind of a ring of truth about it, even though I think that often it's hard to put one's finger on what it is that sometimes gives us this feeling of being imprisoned or stuck within our own selves, regardless of whatever outward freedoms we might have. Well, Abdu'l-Baha spoke quite a lot about this notion of freeing oneself from the prison of self. And he often connected this concept with the concept of having a pure heart. In fact, he once said that the most pressing of all tasks is the purification of the human heart, and that this would lead to true freedom. So, sometimes this phrase, a pure heart, I think, it's used in different ways. And I think sometimes if someone says, oh, that person is very pure-hearted, sometimes maybe what they mean is that, that person is a little bit naive, maybe they have their head in the clouds, but they're harmless, they have a pure heart. But I think that when Abdu'l-Baha used this phrase, I think he meant something quite different. I think that for Abdu'l-Baha to have a pure heart, far from being naive, really meant to have a very acute awareness of what is going on in the reality of our own inner world, to have a kind of a clarity inside of us that is not clouded by all the demands and the noise of our ego, all the fears and desires and agitations and various motivations that our ego is always demanding from us. For Abdu'l-Baha, I think to have a pure heart meant to be able to look inside oneself and to cut through all those things that actually prevent us from thinking clearly and from acting with sound intentions in our lives. He actually once gave a definition of a pure heart. He said, "The pure heart is the one that is entirely detached from self, detached from the ego." And so I sometimes think that detachment is really just another word for freedom. And so for Abdu'l-Baha, the key to true freedom was to pursue a pure heart, and that the key to attaining a pure heart was to have the courage to look inside ourselves at both the bright parts and the dark parts, and to maybe to look at ourselves with honesty and humility and perhaps a little bit of humor, and to tend to our inner world, just like a gardener who tends to his garden and is not afraid to pluck out the weeds whenever he sees them growing. And so I think that when we are able to look into our own inner garden, we can find all those things that are causing us to feel imprisoned in our own selves, and we can address them, and we can set ourselves free from the prison of self. So these are just a few reflections on Abdu'l-Baha's really profound statement about how the greatest prison is the prison of self. And just on this theme, you might like to check out episode 15 of my podcast, A Story of Light, which is linked in the description below, because that episode looks at the story of Abdu'l-Baha and his brother, and the contrast between Abdu'l-Baha's approach to life and his brother's approach to life. And there's actually a song in that episode called Prison of Self. So if you want to check it out, it's linked in the description below, episode 15 of A Story of Light. It's called Rebellion, and you might like to explore it in reference to this theme. Thanks for watching. Hi there, I'm doing these short videos throughout 2021 in honour of the centenary of the passing of Abdul Baha, whose writings are the basis of my new album Home of Light, which is coming out one song at a time throughout the year. All these short stories come from this book, Vignettes from the Life of Abdul Baha, by Anna Marie Honnold, and I hope these little anecdotes give us some glimpses into Abdul Baha's life during this special year. Also, if you'd like a copy of the album, since Home of Light has been made through the support of so many friends around the world, I've decided to give it away as a gift on behalf of everybody who helped to make it. So if you'd like to receive the album, you can sign up at my website, lukeslott.com. It's linked in the description below. And in November, prior to the centenary itself, you'll receive the album as a gift in celebration of Abdul Baha's life. So I appreciate if you hit the like and subscribe buttons, and if you'd like to hear the story behind the album, you can check out my podcast, A Story of Light, also linked in the description below.